began, like any other day at Harrison International Airport. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. No one knew that within the next hour, security protocols, government secrets, and decades-old conspiracies would collide, all because of one girl carrying a metal that should not exist. Outside, a storm raged, mirroring the chaos that was about to unfold inside the terminal. The air was thick with the usual sounds of travel last-minute boarding calls, rolling suitcases, and families saying their goodbyes. But beneath it all, a silent clock was ticking down. A young woman stepped up to the security checkpoint. She was in her early 20s, with brown hair tucked into a navy hoodie, and she carried a worn-out backpack. She looked harmless, but the most dangerous people usually do. She placed her bag on the scanner, her expression unreadable. The scanner operator leaned closer to his screen, his brow furrowing. He flagged the bag. Bag check. 2 officers pulled her aside, their movements practiced and routine. They began unpacking her belongings: a paperback novel, a half-empty water bottle, a tangle of charging cables. Nothing unusual. Until a small, heavy object slid out from a hidden pocket. It was a matte black medal, attached to a blood-red ribbon. The room grew quiet. One of the officers, an older, stern-faced man named Reed, picked it up, his eyes widening. He whispered, "This can't be real. These were all destroyed." The girl didn't speak. The inscription on the medal seemed to glow faintly under the harsh fluorescent lights. Reed looked up at her, his voice low and intense. "Where did you get this?" The girl, Elena, finally met his gaze. Her voice was calm, almost unnervingly so. "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me." Without another word, they escorted her to a private security room, away from the prying eyes of the public. The ordinary day was over. The interrogation room was small and sterile. The metal table between them felt heavier because of the medal resting in its center. Reed stared at it. "This is the Aegis of Ash. Only 12 were ever made. Awarded for black-level missions. Classified above top secret. The last known carrier died in 1986. So tell me, why do you have one?" Elena's posture was relaxed, a stark contrast to the tension in the room. "Because I earned it." Reed let out a short, disbelieving laugh. He thought she was delusional, a fantasist. But then she began to speak. She described operations, whispered names, recounted missions that had never officially happened. She knew details that he had only ever seen in heavily redacted files, details that haunted the darkest corners of government archives. Stopped laughing. A cold dread crept up his spine. "You're saying you're one of them? From the Nightglass program?" Elena shook her head slightly. "I'm saying the program never ended. You just stopped looking." Just then, the lights in the room flickered and died, replaced by the eerie glow of emergency red bulbs. A voice crackled to life in Reed's earpiece. "Sir, 3 armed individuals have breached the west entrance. They're asking for a woman. They say she has something." Reed's gaze snapped from the medal on the table to Elena's unblinking eyes. "Friends of yours?" A faint, humorless smile touched her lips. "Not even close." In the distance, the sharp report of gunshots echoed through the terminal. Chaos erupted. The concourse, once a river of travelers, became a torrent of panic. Passengers screamed and scrambled for cover as masked attackers swept through the terminal with chilling military precision. Their movements were coordinated, their objective clear. One of them shouted over the din, "Find the woman, she has it." Amid the pandemonium, Elena vanished. One moment, she was standing in the open. The next, she was gone, melting behind a pillar like a ghost. Her movements were silent, economical, deadly. She took down one of the attackers in seconds, a blur of motion in the shadows. She disarmed him, took his weapon, and disappeared back into the chaos. Reed, crouched behind a kiosk, spoke into his earpiece, his voice strained. "Who are these people?" Elena's voice came back, calm and clear. "Skint. People who think the Aegis of Ash should be used again, and they don't care who dies to get it." She paused, the sound of another silenced takedown punctuating her words. "This medal isn't just a symbol, Reed, it's a key. A key to a vault holding something the world should never reopen. They're not just here for a piece of metal, they're here to unlock a nightmare." By the time the airport's tactical teams arrived, the firefight was over. 2 of the attackers were down, neutralized with a terrifying efficiency. The third had vanished into the maze of service corridors beneath the airport. The immediate threat was gone, but the air was thick with questions. Elena stood by a broken baggage carousel, calmly securing the metal bag in its hidden pocket. The chaos around her didn't seem to touch her. Reed approached, his own weapon still drawn. "You're coming with me. We have a lot to talk about." Elena looked at him, not with defiance, but with a kind of weary certainty. "No, you're going to go back to your office and report that you found nothing. You'll file it as a gang-related incident that got out of hand. You'll say the woman you detained was a case of mistaken identity and you let her go. As far as your records are concerned, I don't exist." Reed hesitated. "But why? If I don't, then you'll quickly understand why they gave me the Aegis in the first place." And with that, she turned and slipped into a crowd of evacuated passengers, disappearing as completely as a shadow at dusk. 2 weeks later, Reed sat in his quiet apartment, staring out at the city lights. The entire airport incident had been sealed, classified above his clearance level. Every report he filed was returned, stamped with a red case closed. There was no official mention of Elena, the attackers, or the Aegis of Ash. It was as if it never happened. His superiors told him to forget it, to move on. But he couldn't. He kept seeing her calm, steady eyes. He kept hearing her voice. A soft sound at his front door startled him. He hadn't ordered anything. Cautiously, he opened it to find a small, plain envelope on his doormat. There was no name, no address. His heart hammered in his chest. He took it inside and carefully opened it. Wrapped in a simple piece of cloth was the same matte black medal with its blood-red ribbon. The Aegis of Ash. It wasn't a threat. It was a message, a reminder that some shadows are always watching. The fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in the shadows.